Welcome to According to Sam, folks. This is episode 354. Thank you for joining me. Hope you guys had a good weekend. I was going to start this podcast. I had some stuff that I wanted to cover from this No Kings Part 2. No Kings rally that they did over the weekend, and show some of that ridiculousness and some images from the different protests that were scattered throughout the country. Again, well organized, well funded by these left-wing organizations. It's just completely ridiculous. We're getting ready to get into in November next month, and in a week or so, this month's going by so fast. We'll be in November, and from that moment that we get into the first week of November, you are 365 days away from the midterm election. So everything right now is gearing up towards getting people motivated for the next 12 months and the campaigning and the midterm elections that will happen 365 days from the first week of November, which that's what all this is about. That's what this No Kings protest is about, trying to keep people motivated. And I mean, the polling, everyone is, I was looking at, and that's what I was going to start the podcast off and show you guys some of this polling. Everyone's been citing this one poll from AP that has Trump at 37% approval. If you go to Real Clear Politics and you look at, I think they have something like 15 polls there. That AP poll is definitely the outlier at 37. It's the lowest poll of 37%. And on average of all the 15 polls, Trump is at 45% approval, where he's been for months. He's not losing support, this narrative that they try to, I was going to go into all of that. I don't have time to go into that stuff. I'm going to pick up where I left off in the last podcast, because I left so much on the table. There's no way that I'm going to be able to finish everything that I have today. And we're going to pick this up again on Friday. I'm having a lot of fun going through this history, and we're still talking about the Jews. And that's what we've been talking about. I've been telling the story of the Jewish people and the scattering of the Jewish diaspora that happened first when the Assyrians scattered the northern 10 tribes, but then again when the Babylonians, Neo-Babylonians, attacked Jerusalem and brought back a bunch of the Jews into Babylon in exile. And then again, when the Second Temple was destroyed in 70 AD by Titus Vespasian, again, the diaspora was spread out and scattered. And we've been talking about that. And we talked about in the last podcast, talking about the word eschatology and the study and focus of eschatology. Eschatology is the study and focus of the end times, the end of the world, the end of the universe, the end of everything. And I was explaining how that there's many different views on eschatology, so many different religious views, but even views on eschatology that are not religious, but many of them deal with different faiths. Judaism has their view on eschatology. God will redeem Israel from captivity, which begun during the Babylonian exile. This is the Babylonian captivity that we've been talking about. The Messianic age, it says right here, Judaism usually refers to the end times as the end of days, a phrase that appears several times in the Tanakh. The end of times are addressed in the book of Daniel. The book of Daniel is written because Daniel is in exile during the Babylonian captivity. When we get into the Babylonian captivity, we're going to read from the book of Daniel, very important book in terms of Jewish eschatology and many in Christian eschatology. It says the end times are addressed in the book of Daniel and numerous and other prophetic passages in the Hebrew scriptures, also in the Talmud, particularly in Avodah Zahara. So you have Kabbalah has different eschatology. Zoroastrianism has the different eschatology. Gnostics have a form of eschatology. And then again, within Christianity, I was explaining in the last podcast, there are several different views on eschatology within the Christian faith. Christian eschatological. This is the word I was having trouble with in the last pod. Christian eschatological. Christian eschatological research looks to study and discuss matters such as the nature of the divine. You have, like I was saying in the last podcast, different views in the about the tribulation, post-trib, pre-trib, about the millennium, post-millennial, different views on eschatology. I was explaining again also in the last podcast how, I take all these views on eschatology with a grain of salt, particularly because Jesus told us to beware. He says to take heed when the disciples are asking him. This is in the book of Matthew, chapter 24. And Jesus' disciples are asking him, how are we going to know when the coming and the age is going to end and the sign of your second coming? And Jesus tells them very first thing, take heed, beware that no one deceives you. He's insinuating that there's going to be a lot of deceit going on in the end times and to beware that no one deceives you. Now, a lot of Christian eschatology deals with this site right here. And this is why this is important. And this is why you need to understand it. That's the question that I'm going to answer for you here in a moment is why should you care about this? If you're not Christian, if you're not Jewish, if you're an atheist and a materialist and you don't believe in any of this stuff, why should this matter to you? Why should you care about this? You're secular humanist. Why should you care about this? I'm going to explain to you why you should care about this, because this is Temple Mount. This is where the second temple was, also where the first temple was, but this is the site of the ruins of the second temple that were destroyed in 70 AD by the Romans. And you can see here that there's a mosque sitting right on top of Temple Mount. And a lot of foreign policy that is made here in the United States and other parts of Europe deals with this site and the relevance that this site has to particular views on eschatology. Getting back into Dinesh D'Souza's movie, the movie is called The Dragon's Prophecy. I've been talking about it in the last couple of podcasts, playing clips from it. Again, I said in the last podcast, I recommend the movie. I think it's good. There's some issues that I have with it, but overall, it's a good movie. But the title of the movie, The Dragon's Prophecy, is based on the title of the book by the gentleman we're getting ready to listen to. He's interviewed by Dinesh D'Souza in the movie. His name is Jonathan Cahn. He is a Jewish man, a Messianic Jew who believes that he's a Jewish man who believes Jesus Christ is the Messiah. So that's what a Messianic Jew is. Jewish person of Jewish heritage, Jewish descent, that believes that Jesus Christ is Mashiach, Messiah. So Jonathan Cahn is the one who wrote the book, Dragon's Prophecy, and Dinesh D'Souza titled his movie about Jonathan Cahn's book, The Dragon's Prophecy. It's all about eschatology. It's all about, The Dragon's Prophecy is about eschatology. It's about end times.
Right now in Israel, you have the most important structure in Jerusalem, in Israel, perhaps in the world, and that is the Temple Mount, at the very top of the Temple Mount sits a mosque, a great conquest by the dragon.
It's really the ground zero of end-time prophecy. It's called the Temple Mount for the reason that the temple is to be rebuilt there. That mountain shall be lifted up in the end times. All nations will come to it. Messiah will rule from that mountain. The kingdom of God is linked to that mountain. So what is the enemy going to do? In the prophets, the enemy says, I will sit on that mountain.
This then is the real colonialism. Islam has colonized and occupied the holiest site in Judaism and Christianity.
That temple represented the throne of God on earth. So he's going to try to take the throne. And you have the Eastern Gate. The Bible links the Eastern Gate to Messiah coming. But what happened with the Eastern Gate of the Temple Mount? The Muslims blocked it up so nobody could come through. Like, we're going to stop the purpose of God. Behind October 7th was actually the Temple Mount.
This is very important.
Months before October 7th.
This is very important. Behind the October, why should you care? Mention the question, why you should care about this if you don't believe in any of this stuff. If you're not Jewish, you're not Christian, you're not Muslim, you're a secular humanist, why should you care about this? And Jonathan Cahn is going to explain to you, because he's explaining that what Temple Mount and what the mosque there on Temple Mount, how it related to the motivations behind Hamas attacking Israel on October 7th.
Of God, behind October 7th was actually the Temple Mount.
What is that connection?
Months before October 7th, there was an intention that there were Jewish worshipers who wanted to go on the Mount and celebrate Passover on the mountain, which is where you're supposed to celebrate it, with a lamb. All hell broke loose.
I didn't know anything about this. I didn't know anything about this until I watched this movie, but this really happened. I started looking it up after watching this movie, that this has really happened, that these Jewish priests were going to take a red heifer onto Temple Mount and sacrifice a red heifer there on Temple Mount. And that's what set off all these protests because of the Arabs. The mosque there is sacred, and this is what this is all about. So why were these Jewish rabbis there to sacrifice a red heifer on Temple Mount just months in the spring of 2023? I'm going to explain that to you.
On the mountain, which is where you're supposed to celebrate it, with a lamb. All hell broke loose.
He says lamb. It wasn't a lamb. It was a red heifer.
Hamas issued a statement. They said it was because you, Israel, desecrated our holy place. And in one of those things, it said, because of the red heifers.
So the Bible speaks about, in times of Moses and Aaron, red heifers being part of the ritualistic sacrifice. Red heifers in the temple would be a pretty telltale sign of the last days.
Yeah. The red heifers. They haven't existed, but all of a sudden they found about 5 of them.
These are the red heifers that landed at Israel's Ben Gurion Airport.
So this really happened. So in 2023, I started looking this up, and I thought that this was so crazy, but he is absolutely right that this happened. They didn't report on this on any other news here in the United States. This was a article that came out in March. So right around that time of Passover, in March of 2023, that Israel's red heifers will soon be of age to be sacrificed. So they were planning on sacrificing these red heifers, and that's what started the riot there, and the Arabs rioting and got upset. And what Jonathan Cahn says there about Hamas, saying that is what inspired them, and one of the reasons that they executed the attack on October 7th. I'm going to play that for you here, or show you that here in a moment. But this is another part of Dinesh D'Souza's movie where they go into the significance of the red heifers. Take a listen.
Shiloh invokes the very beginning of the story of Israel, but in some ways it is also connected with the end times. Jonathan Cahn spoke of red heifers. we found the very same red heifers in Shiloh. Larry Borntrager is a ranch hand from America looking after the red heifers.
Larry, in the Bible, it talks about the temple being built again in the end times.
Yeah.
And for the temple to be built again, there would need to be services or rites performed in the temple.
They would need to have the waters of purification, which, according to Numbers 19, would be the ashes of a red heifer mixed in with living water, sprinkled on the people.
So this practice goes back to the time of Moses.
Yes. 30 years ago, a farmer thought maybe someday Israel might need a red heifer. Some years ago, some of the rabbis were looking for a red heifer in Israel. They couldn't find any. So they advertised outside. This farmer said yes, he thinks he has some.
Where was that?
In Texas.
How'd they get here?
They came over by plane.
Sometimes when people talk about Bible prophecy, they speak in very general and abstract terms. But here you have a group of rabbis and Jews who are anticipating the reconstruction of a temple and are making actual preparations for doing rites and services in it.
That's the whole idea.
Shiloh is a place of ancient.
So this is a very important part of the story, you know? Sorry about that. Very important part of the story that you're not being told. And I mean, I can't believe that they didn't tell us about the fact that they had this riot. And I mean, I guess we don't get all the news, but Hamas, they should have at least told us this. I mean, this is in the newspaper there in Israel. And what Jonathan Kahn says in Dinesh D'Souza's movie is 100% true. Hamas spokesman, in January. This happened in January of 2024. So you got to understand. So in the spring of 2023, they were making preparations to go and sacrifice a red heifer there on Temple Mount where the mosque was. It starts the riot that you saw with the Arabs saying, no, they weren't going to let the Jews aren't allowed on Temple Mount because of the mosque there. And they were talking about the fact that the red heifers are of age, and now it's time to go there and sacrifice them. That's in the spring of 2023. And then October 7th happens in October of 2023. And then this is January 2024. So you just 4 months later, the spokesman after the October 7th attack, the spokesman from Hamas, October 7th attack launched to stop red heifers. This is the title right here. That the reason that they did October 7th is to stop the red heifers. This is the video that he put out. It's in Arabic. You can't understand what he's saying, but Palestine Chronicle translated everything that he says. He says that we did the October 7th attack to stop the red heifers. Anyway, it's in Arabic anyway, but you can go and watch this video on the Palestinian Chronicles X page where he says that we did October 7th attack to stop the red heifers and the sacrifice of the red heifers. So why is this important? Why should you care about this? I'm a secular humanist. I don't believe in any of this stuff. I'm an atheist. I'm a communist. Why should I care about this? Well, you should care about this because you have politicians in the United States, in England, in other parts of the world that are making decisions, foreign policy decisions based on what it says in the Bible. That's what Ted Cruz says here. And we played this clip in the last podcast of this interaction between him and Tucker Carlson. He says that the number one reason that he supports Israel is not because they're an ally, not because they are a democracy, not because we benefit from Israel in some way with trade and technology, or that they're good people. That's not his number one reason for why he supports Israel. And if you think Ted Cruz is the only one who has this point of view, then you're crazy. Members of Congress on both sides, Democrats and Republicans, and have the same point of view that we should support Israel because the Bible tells us that we should support Israel. And you need to understand what's going on in Israel right now. And what this has to do with, this has to deal with a lot to do with the third temple and the mosque there on Temple Mount, and the coming conflict that's going to take place. What's going on with the settlements in the West Bank? What's going on? There's more stuff going on than what they're telling you on the news, obviously. But let's listen to Ted Cruz say again that his number one reason for supporting Israel is because the Bible tells him to.
Growing up in Sunday school, I was taught from the Bible, those who bless Israel will be blessed, and those who curse Israel will be cursed. And from my perspective, I want to be on the blessing side of things.
Of those who bless the government of Israel?
Those who bless Israel is what it says. It doesn't say the government of, it says the nation of Israel. So that's in the Bible. As a Christian, I believe that.
Where is that?
I can find it to you. I don't have the scripture off the tip of my. You pull out the phone and use the Google.
It's in Genesis. But so you're quoting a Bible phrase. You don't have context for it. And you don't know where in the Bible it is, but that's like your theology. I'm confused. What does that even mean?
Tucker.
I'm a Christian. I want to know what you're talking about.
Okay. Where does my support for Israel come from? Number one. Because biblically we're commanded to support Israel. But
Number one. Where does my support for Israel come from? Number one is because biblically we are commanded to support Israel, is what one of the 100 senators in the Senate, Texas State Senator Ted Cruz, Raphael Cruz, says. Number one is because we're commanded in the Bible to support Israel. What's his name? The guy from the Left Behind series. What's his name? I don't remember his name. What's his name? Cameron. He's the actor from the Left Behind series. He used to have I forget the name of the sitcom that he was on, but I think it's not James Cameron. What's his name? Gonna kill me. Kirk Cameron. Anyway, Kirk Cameron did this reaction to the interaction with Ted Cruz and Tucker Carlson, and it went viral. Very interesting that Kirk Cameron did the Left Behind series, because the Left Behind series is a series about the rapture. So it promotes a very specific form of eschatology and dispensationalism. But it's very interesting that this video of Kirk Cameron responding to the interaction with Ted Cruz and Tucker Carlson. Take a listen.
We are commanded as Christians to support the government of Israel?
We are commanded to support Israel.
I know the verse that Tucker Carlson's talking about in Genesis actually doesn't say Israel. It says that those who bless you, Abraham, this was before Israel, will be blessed by God, and those who curse you, Abraham, will be cursed by God. Jesus...
What he's saying here is not true. That first part is not true.
Demystifies who the children of Abraham actually are. And Paul absolutely clarifies it. For not all who are born into the nation of Israel are truly members of God's people. Well, that sounds like it contradicts what Ted Cruz just said. Being descendants of Abraham doesn't make them truly Abraham's children. It sounds like he's saying not all of Israel is really Israel just because they're Jewish.
We're going to go over that passage that Paul that he's talking about in Romans, because it's not everything that he's saying here. It's partially true, but not all true.
And not all of Israel is really Israel just because they're Jewish. Israel didn't have a nation or a land to call their own for almost 2,000 years since the destruction of the temple in the year 70 AD. The nation of Israel was recreated through some political operatives after World War II. So in that almost 2,000-year period, what did it even mean to bless Israel or to curse Israel? There was no Israel per se.
The Jewish people.
I think the scripture makes it clear that it's about whether you're blessing or cursing the true children of Abraham, those who believe the promises of the gospel.
All right, so and this went viral. A lot of people, we're giving Kirk Cameron credit and being like, "Oh yeah, you got him, you got Ted Cruz." But like I was saying, everything that he says here is not true. It's not all the truth, and so we're going to get into it. But first of all, I want to get into the passage that Ted Cruz was referencing, and Tucker Carlson was referencing, and that Kirk Cameron there was referencing in Genesis, in the 12th chapter of Genesis. And it says that the Lord said to Abram, notice that his name, when God is talking to Abram at this point in Genesis 12, his name has not been changed to Abraham. God changes Abraham's name to Abraham. At the same time, he changes Abraham's wife's Sarai's name to Sarah, and he does so by adding one Hebrew letter to their name, and it's a very significant letter. It's the reason that he changes their name, very significant reason that he changes their name. But at this point, when God is talking to Abram in Genesis 12, he has not changed his name yet. So they have not made the covenant yet. And we're going to get to the passage where they do make the covenant and where God changes his name. But the Lord said to Abram, go from your country, from your people, from your father's household to a land that I will show you. I will make you into a great nation. So when he says he's talking to Abram, and he's saying, come out of your country that you're living in, your father's house, and go with me to this place, to this land that I'm going to show you, and I'll make you a great nation. So he says right here, a nation. It's a great, not only is he talking about Abram, he's talking about the nation that he's going to make through Abram, is what God is telling me. And I will bless you, and I will make your name great, and you will be a blessing. And I will bless those who bless you, and I will curse those who curse you, and all the people of the earth will be blessed through you. So this is just the very next thing that you see here is that Abram went. God says, go, and Abram went, as the Lord had told him, and his cousin Lot went with him. Okay, so he's talking about the nation, and he does say those who bless the nation of Israel. We're going to talk about who the nation is, but those who bless, I will bless you. And those who curse, I will curse you, is what he says. And if that's not clear enough, this is the very next chapter 13, Genesis, 14th verse. And the Lord says to Abram, he's still Abram here. Lord says to Abram, after Lot had parted for him, look around where you are, to the north, to the south, to the east, to the west. All the land that you see, I will give to you and your offspring forever. Let me read that again. All the land that you see, I will give to you and your offspring forever. I will make your offspring like the dust of the earth, so that if anyone could count the dust, then your offspring could be counted. Go walk through the length and breadth of the land I am giving to you. So Abram went to live near the great trees of Myrrh and Hebron, where he pitched his tents. So God is telling him, I'm going to make your offspring great, and I'm going to give your offspring the land that I'm going to take you into, the land of Canaan. I'm going to give you that land forever, is what he says. And he says that I will make your offspring like the dust of the earth. You won't even be able to count how many of your offspring there are all over the world, because I'm going to make them great like the dust. You can't even count the dust. And then, if that's not enough for you, this is Abram's, and this is after God has changed his name to Abraham, and he's made the covenant with Abraham. All this time, I want to point out, all this time where his name's Abram, and God's telling you, I'm going to make a great nation out of you. I'm going to bless you. that your seed is going to be like the dust, and you won't even be able to count them because there's going to be so many. All this time when God's telling Abram that, Abram is childless. He didn't have any children. And God is telling him, I'm going to make your seed great. I'm going to make your numbers, more than the dust, where you can't even count them. Your name's going to be great through you. You're going to bless everyone because of your seed. And at the time God is telling Abram all of that, Abram doesn't have any children at all. Can you imagine that? It's crazy. So at this time, and this is Genesis, this is the 22nd chapter. And by this time, God has changed his name to Abraham. He's made the covenant between Abraham and Sarah. By this time, Abraham not only has one son, he's got two sons. But the son that the promise is through his son Isaac. And this is where, after Isaac is born, God tells Abraham to go to Mount Moriah and to sacrifice his only son, Isaac, to him. And then Abraham goes, he ties up his son. He's about to sacrifice him, and the angel of the Lord comes and stops Abraham from sacrificing his son. And this is the interaction that the angel of the Lord called to Abraham from heaven a second time and said, I swear by myself, declare the Lord, that because, no, hold on. Let's go back up here. Oh, no, here it is right here. Okay. An angel of the Lord called to Abraham from the heaven the second time and said, I swear by myself, declares the Lord, that because you have done this and have not withheld your son, your only son, I will surely bless you and make your descendants, as numerous as the stars of the sky, as the sand on the seashore. Your descendants will take possessions of the cities and their enemies. And through your offsprings, all nations will be blessed because you have obeyed me. So again, this just reiterating that your descendants are going to be numerous, more numerous than the stars in the sky or the sands on the shore. They're going to be more numerous than the dust, is what he says in the previous chapter. And then this is Abraham's grandson, the son of Isaac, Jacob. And if you've heard the story, or heard the term Jacob's ladder, this is the story of Jacob's ladder, where God puts Jacob in a sleep. He dreams of this ladder to heaven, of people going up and down the ladder. And this is what God tells Jacob in that dream, where he's dreaming of Jacob's ladder. There above it stood the Lord. He said, I am the Lord your God, your father Abraham, and the God of Isaac. I will give you and your descendants the land on which you are living. Your descendants will be like the dust of the earth, and will spread out to the west and to the east and to the north and to the south. All peoples on the earth will be blessed through you and your offspring. And I am with you and will watch over you wherever you go. I will bring you back to this land. I will bring you back to this land. I will not leave you until I have done what I have promised you. This is God speaking to Jacob. So it's pretty much reiterated over and over again that God is not only talking about Abraham when he makes that promise that I will bless those who bless you and that I will curse those who curse you. He's talking about the nation. He's talking about the entire people group of the Hebrew nations, all the tribes, all the people that are a part of the descendants. It's very clear. Offspring. It says offspring. It says descendants. That's who God is talking about. The offspring of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. That's who he makes the covenant with, the lasting covenant. All right. So, Chaldea, let's talk about the Chaldeans real quick. because when God makes this, first calls out Abram, and his name's Abram, and he says, go out from your country and from your people and from your father's household to this place that I will show you. When he first, when he first reaches out to Abram and calls Abram out of the land where he was living, where Abram was living was in a region of southern Iraq called the Chaldean region. Well, he was basically part of the Chaldean empire. He comes from this part of southern Iraq that is called the city of Ur, and the Chaldeans, basically, when the Babylonians took over, the Chaldeans had been there for a period of time, and the Babylonians kind of like they had an alliance. Even though the Babylonians were the dominant power, they had an alliance there with the Chaldeans. The Chaldeans they always occupied that region, and there's still a lot of there's a huge Chaldean population here in San Diego right now. The Chaldeans are still around to this day. But Abram was a Chaldean from the city of Ur when God calls him out of Ur and tells them, go to a place that I will show you. Now, the Chaldeans, just like the Babylonians, just like the Akkadians, just like the Sumerians, they all worshiped the Anunnaki gods. They all had a pantheon of gods, many different gods that they worship. And for a lone god to call Abram out of that religious system and say that you're not going to worship any more of these other gods that you've been worshiping in the Babylonian and Chaldean pantheon, that you're going to be monotheistic now and only follow the one true God. For something like that to happen is pretty unique. But that's what happened to Abram, is that God calls him out of that religious system there in the Chaldean empire, which became the Babylonian empire, and he calls him out to a land where he's going to create a nation of people that only worship one God, which was completely bizarre and unique to the people all around that region, to the Egyptians, to the Assyrians, to everyone in that region. The monotheism was crazy. It was a crazy idea, but he's calling Abram out of that region and that religious system and calling him away from polytheism and having many gods to the worship of only one God. And I have a little clip here about the Chaldeans that I want to play, so you know where Abram came from and where he came out of. And the Chaldeans are still there too when you have the Babylonian captivity, when later on, centuries later, when Nebuchadnezzar brings all these Jews back to Babylon during the Babylonian exile, the Chaldeans are still there, and they play a significant role. We'll talk about that much later.
When we talk about the Chaldeans, we are entering one of the most fascinating chapters of human history, one that lies at the very heart of Mesopotamia, the land between the rivers, where civilization itself first took root. The Chaldeans, known in ancient texts as the Chaldu, or sometimes as the Chaldaioi in Greek sources, were a Semitic people who emerged in southern Mesopotamia around the early 9th century BCE. But their story is far more than just the tale of a tribe appearing in the marshlands of Babylonia. It is a saga of migration, identity, ambition, and cultural fusion. To understand the Chaldeans, we must step back for a moment and imagine the world they stepped into. By the time they appear in the historical record, Mesopotamia was already an ancient land, layered with millennia of civilizations. The Sumerians had long since invented writing and urban life. The Akkadians had forged the world's first empire. The Babylonians and Assyrians had dominated the stage with towering ziggurats, intricate laws, and ruthless armies. Into this world came the Chaldeans, a people whose origins were somewhat mysterious and who would, in time, carve their name deeply into history. So, where did the Chaldeans come from?
All right, so the Chaldeans, I don't have time to play much of that, but I just want to emphasize that Abraham was Chaldean, and when God calls Abraham out of the Chaldean southern Sumerian, Babylonian region. He calls them away. He calls Abram away to make him and his descendants a nation that only worship one God, and monotheism is, like I said, it's the heart. It's at the heart of every Abrahamic religion, Judaism, Christianity, and even Islam. And that's what that we went over the passage in Deuteronomy 4 in the last podcast. How God tells them that I'm going to take you out of the wilderness, they'd come out of Egypt, out of the wilderness. I'm going to take you into this land, the land of Canaan. It's a land that was flowing of milk and honey. Going to bless you as long as you don't worship any other gods. It was the sticking point. Again, it's the very first commandment in the 10 Commandments. Don't worship any other gods. Now, these people, they start worshiping other gods almost immediately after coming out of Egypt. It's really interesting because when the children of Israel were in Egypt, they didn't know anything about the God of their fathers and grandfathers. They didn't know anything about the God of Isaac and Jacob. They felt that because they were in slavery in Egypt, that they had been forsaken by God until God sends Moses to deliver them. But, they grew up in a religious system there in Egypt where it was polytheistic. Like they probably would have been, worshiping Ra and all the other Egyptian gods in the Egyptian pantheon there when they were in captivity in Egypt before God reveals himself to them through Moses and delivers them out of bondage there in Egypt. But even when they're there in the wilderness after being delivered from Egypt, and they were really a lot of times, there's this one passage, I don't even have time to get into this passage, but this is in Numbers 14, where they start grumbling and saying, we should have just died in Egypt, or we're dying here in the wilderness. They were complaining to Moses and Aaron, and they were threatening to stone Moses and Aaron when they're there in the wilderness. And then God gets angry at them, and it's like, what's wrong with these people? As a matter of fact, God allows many of the older people that were in Egypt. That's why they wander in the desert, in the wilderness for so long, because he wants those people to die, because he doesn't want to go into the new land with people that have the mentality of Egypt. So he basically he sends them around in the wilderness for a number of years until the old people who, were back in Egypt, until they die off, because he basically didn't want to take them into the promised land, because he didn't want anyone who had the mindset and the memories of what it was to live like in Egypt, worshiping other gods, worshiping, and having the same customs and practices as the Egyptians did. He wanted a entirely new people to take into the promised land. So that's why he took them around in the wilderness and let, the older people with the older mentality, let them die off so he can go into the promised land with the younger people that only knew him from their time in the wilderness. I mean, it's really, so the polytheism was off the table. No other gods and no practicing witchcraft. Those are the two biggest rules. No other gods and no practicing witchcraft. We read the passage in Deuteronomy 4 in the last podcast, where Moses is telling him exactly what's going to happen. This is when they're on the east side of the Jordan, before they even cross over the Jordan and to take the new land. Moses tells them, you're going to go over there, you're going to start worshiping other gods, you're going to set up idols, and then God is going to get angry with you. And then he's going to scatter you and send you scattering all over the world. And he says that. Says exactly what's going to happen. Exactly what Moses says is going to happen is what happened. There's this other passage in Leviticus, and he says it again. This is in Leviticus, reward for obedience. And he's saying again here in Leviticus, do not make idols or set up an image or a sacred stone for yourselves. Do not place carved stone in your hand, in your land, or bow down before any, because that was like Stonehenge. They used to set up the stones and do the rituals with the stones. He says, don't set up images or sacred stones, or carved stones and worship those. Don't do that. I am the Lord your God. Observe my Sabbath and have reverence for my sanctuary. I am your Lord. If you follow my decrees and are careful to obey my commands, I will send you rain in its season, and the ground will yield crops, and the trees their fruit, and your thrashing will continue until grape harvest, and the harvest and the grape harvest will continue until planting, and you will eat all the food you want and live in safety in your land. He's like, I will give you food and bring forth the crop, and you will be safe in the land if you follow my decrees. And what are the decrees? No worship of other gods, no worship of stones, and don't do witchcraft. Those are his decrees. He's basically telling them, I will grant you peace in the land, and you will lie down and no one will make you afraid. I will remove wild beasts from the land, and the sword will not pass through your country. I will pressure your enemies, and they will fall by the sword. It's like basically saying that I'll protect you. You're going to be protected. You're going to be able to eat off the fat of the land. If all you have to do is keep my commandments and don't worship other gods, don't do witchcraft. And then, so he tells them all that. That's what's going to happen if you do my commandments and you don't set up idols. You don't set up stones to worship and worship other gods. If you do all that, you're going to be safe and you're going to be able to eat off the fat of the land. And he says right here, 14th verse, but if you will not listen to me and carry out all of these commands, if you reject my decrees and abhor my laws and fail to carry out my commandments, so violate my covenant, then I will do this to you. I will bring you sudden terror, wasting disease, wasting disease and fever that will destroy your sight and sap your strength. You will plant seeds in vain because your enemies will eat it. I will set my face against you so that you will be defeated by your enemies. So those who hate you will rule over you, and you will flee even when no one is pursuing you. So he's basically saying the same thing that Moses says in Deuteronomy 4. It's interesting how all this stuff is reiterated over and over again. He's reiterating to Abram first, that I'm going to bless your seed. I'm going to make your seed numerous in the earth. Everyone's going to be blessed by you. So he tells Abram that multiple times. He tells Jacob the same thing. And then, and when you start getting into Leviticus, he says the same thing. Don't make idols. Don't do witchcraft. If you do this, you do what I command, I'm going to bless you. I'm going to, and so this is the exact same thing in the passage that Ted Cruz is making reference to, and with Tucker Carlson, and that what even Kirk Cameron is talking about, where God is saying to Abram that I will bless those who bless you and I will curse those who curse you. Well, God is the one who says that I will bless you if you do my commandments, and I will curse you if you don't do my commandments. God is the one who says that in Leviticus right here. God is the one saying that I'm going to be the one who bless you if you do my commandments, but if you don't do my commandments, you're going to get curses. It's right here in Leviticus. Leviticus 26, reward for obedience. So you get rewards for obedience and disobedience, you get cursed. It's all right here. It's all right here. So because of of who the promises are promised to in Genesis, and we're talking about that it says your offspring to Abraham, to Jacob, your offspring, your descendants, then it's talking about a specific group of people. And it's important to ask, thousands of years later, 2025, are the people who are there right now, those people are the people who make up the nation of Israel today in 2025 under the leadership of Benjamin Netanyahu, are those the descendants, the offsprings of Abraham and Jacob. We've been talking about the fact that the tribes ended up splitting. There were 12 tribes because Jacob had 12 sons, and the tribes basically lived separate but united as one nation under King Saul, under King David, and then after under King Solomon. After King Solomon died, and Solomon's son Rehoboam takes over, and the kingdoms divide. They divide into 10 tribes in the north, and then 2 tribes in the south. And Jeroboam becomes the leader of the 10 tribes in the north. And Jeroboam, he doesn't want the people to travel back down into Judah to go to the temple every year during Yom Kippur, which was part of God's commandment, that they had to go to the temple and they had to make annual sacrifices during the period of Yom Kippur to atone for their sins. And Jeroboam did not want the people from the 10 tribes in the north to go back into Judah, into Jerusalem, and make these yearly sacrifices, because he says that, they'll eventually unite with Judah again, and then they'll come and kill me. So what Jeroboam decided to do is decided to set up 2 idols, 2 golden calves, golden bulls, one in Bethel and one in Dan. And he told the people to worship those. The exact same thing that God told them not to do over and over again. Don't set up idols. Don't worship other gods. That's what Jeroboam did. And because of him doing that and them starting to worship other gods, worship Baal, worship the bull, and then they received the divine punishment, which was the Assyrian captivity. And the Assyrians, they are the first to raid remember what we were just reading too in Leviticus. You keep my commandments. You don't make idols. You don't set up stones to worship. I'm going to keep you fed. They're going to keep you safe. But if you do, then you're going to be destroyed. So then they're destroyed by the Assyrians. The Assyrians scatter the northern 10 tribes. They raid Judah as well, but they don't destroy the temple, and the king Hezekiah there stays on the throne. But the king in the north, that dynasty is forever done after the Assyrian captivity, and the 10 tribes, they are scattered out through the Assyrian Empire. They go to many other places. We don't really know where they're gone. Some of them went down into Judah, but that is where the theory of the and the question of the 10 lost tribes comes from. If you start doing research on the 10 lost tribes, there is a lot of theories and research about the 10 lost tribes. We will read a little bit about it right here in the Wikipedia page. The 10 lost tribes were those of the 12 tribes of Israel that were said to have been exiled from the kingdom of Israel after it was conquered by the Neo-Assyrian Empire around 720 BCE. It gives you all the different tribes that were associated with the northern tribes that were scattered throughout all of the world. And God's, again, going back to Genesis, I'm going to make your seed, your descendants, like the dust in the air, like the sand, like the stars in the sky. Well, that dust, that sand, those stars in the sky starts to spread out and is scattered all over the world. We don't know where they went, but we're going to talk a little bit about where they went and some theories about where they went, probably in the next podcast because I don't have very much time. But the lost 10 tribes, that's where, or the 10 lost tribes, that's where this idea comes from. And it's been an idea that has been around for a long time. It says right here, the Jewish historian Josephus wrote that there are but 2 tribes in Asia and Europe subjected to the Romans, while the 10 tribes are beyond the Euphrates now. So this is Josephus writing about the lost 10 tribes 2,000 years ago. And again, this was the way the tribes were separated before the Assyrian captivity and the Assyrian invasion. All right, let's talk about the covenant of circumcision, because this is where God makes the covenant with Abram and changes the name of Abram to Abraham. But he doesn't only change Abram's name to Abraham, he also changes Abraham's wife's name from Sarai to Sarah. And he does so by changing both of their names by including the he vowel into their names, into both of their names. Abram becomes Abraham, and Sarai becomes Saraiah. So it's the he vowel, that just the one vowel that he adds to both of their names. Very, very significant. I don't have time to go into how significant that is, but it's just when you understand the significance of that and why God changed their name by adding that vowel to their name, it's just mind blowing. Maybe one day I'll tell it. But the covenant of circumcision, male circumcision, the cutting of the foreskin of every male was a significant part of the covenant that carried on more than anything. Let's just read a little bit of this. I got a little bit more time. When Abram was 99 years old, the Lord appeared to him and said, I'm the Lord, I'm God Almighty, walk before me faithful and be blameless. Then I will make a covenant between me and you and Sarah. It doesn't say Sarah there, but Sarah's included in the covenant. People call this the Abrahamic covenant, but Sarah is included in the covenant. You have to understand that. Then I will make a covenant between me and you and will greatly increase your numbers. Abram fell face down, and the God said to him, as for me and this is my covenant. As for me, this is my covenant with you. I will be the father of many nations. You will be the father of many nations. God said to Abram, you'll be the father of many nations. No longer will you be called Abram. Your name will be Abraham, for I have made you a father of many nations. I will make you very fruitful. I will make nations of you, and kings will come from you. I will establish my covenant as an everlasting covenant between me and between you and your descendants after you and your descendants after you for the generations to come. It's interesting. I will establish my covenant as an everlasting covenant between me and you and your descendants and your descendants after you for generations to come, and to be your God and the God of your descendants after you. The whole land of Canaan, where you now reside as a foreigner, I will give as an everlasting possession to you and your descendants after you. I will be their God. Then God said to Abraham, as for you, you must keep my covenant. You and your descendants after you for generations to come must keep my covenant. You must keep my covenant. Don't worship other gods. Don't do witchcraft. Don't set up rocks and other idols. You must keep my commandments. You and your descendants. This is my covenant with you and your descendants after you. The covenant you are to keep. Every male, this is the covenant. This is the covenant. The covenant you are to keep. Keep my covenant. The covenant you are to keep. Every male among you shall be circumcised. You are to undergo circumcision, and it will be a sign of the covenant between you and me. The cutting of the foreskin off of males is very significant. It's very controversial today, but it is very significant. Why did God want Abraham to cut his foreskin off at 90 something years old, and then also the foreskin of Isaac, Ishmael, and their descent? Teach that for all their descendants. When Jacob is born and all his sons, they're all circumcised. I'm sure they did this in Egypt. That's how they knew that they were Hebrews. This is the sign of being Hebrew. This sign of being Hebrew is that the males do not have foreskin and that they've been circumcised. Why did God do that? It was the marker. It was the marker. That was the most significant part of the covenant, was the cutting off the foreskin and circumcision. This is very, very, very important, because when the diaspora is spread and the Assyrian invasion happens, and even the Babylonian captivity, and then even after the Romans destroy the second temple, and the diaspora is spread throughout all of the world, like the dust, like the sand, and it's spread and it's spread. They're still keeping that covenant. It's a very significant part of the covenant is the circumcision and the cutting of the foreskin. Very important. I don't have a lot of time, and there's so much more that I want to get into that we're going to pick up in the next podcast, because we'll pick it up right here, because there's no need to go any further, because I'm not going to be able to get deep into this stuff, and I'm already done. Anyway, we'll pick this up on Friday. Hope you guys have a great week, and I'll see you on Friday.